Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya and welcome to another episode of TFiR Let's Talk. And today we have with us Prabhjot Singh Sethi, VP of Engineering at Coredge. Prabhjot, it's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Swapnil. Thank you for having me.
And today we are going to talk about Nephio open source community. Let's get started with some basics. Tell me, what is Nephio all about?
So Nephio is essentially a seeded project by Google, targeted to solve the 5G problem for the telco industry, where everyone wants to leverage the cloud native technologies and people are struggling. So Nephio came up with a proposal thought process for the community to make it easier and a more consumable model. So that is the intent of Nephio.
You said the folks were struggling to embrace technologies. So can you talk about what kind of struggle challenges they were facing?
So when we talk about cloud native technologies, they were preliminary developed with enterprise solutions in mind, and many of the telco requirements with respect to the network functions and other aspects were most of the point of time were overlooked. And many communities try to solve it in different ways and kind of achieve the solution in to certain mark, but it added up a lot of complexities. So that is where Nephio, so a little bit of a history. So coming from Kubernetes model, so it allows you to extend APIs. So initially it started with Red Hat, bringing in a program with respect to the operator SDK. And later on, Google also picked up on the same thread and they introduced their own Kubernetes resource management. And Nephio is essentially trying to leverage those capabilities inherently provided by Kubernetes as a platform and extend the API to kind of solve this problem inline in a much more declarative way instead of the imperative mechanism which other open source solutions were following. And that's where the expectation is that this will be a much simpler solution compared to the complexities that were kind of pitched in the other solutions.
Can you also talk about what kind of use cases or users you are targeting with Nephio?
So Nephio's primary target is 5G. So starting with, of course, the initial use case everyone is looking out to is the rollout of private 5G. And the expectation is probably if everything goes well, even the core telco 5G networks can also probably leverage the same solution. So it is extensible, it is scalable, and that is the primary goal. And of course, by virtue of addressing telco solutions, so once you're in the domain, you are trying to address more complex solutions, the simpler one are automatically addressed as part of it. So Google is in that business for quite some time. And of course, a lot of public clouds are also there. And by virtue of Nephio, there is also a leeway for them to enter into the edge, expand into the edge computing space, right? So that enables a lot of use cases apart from 5G also, but the main focus will remain 5G.
Can you also talk about just like looking at this specific 5G use case or edge use case? What kind of specifically automation issues that Nephio is not only looking at it differently, but also solving it a bit differently to make things easier for telecom operators?
So Nephio comes with altogether a Kubernetes mindset, right? So where it says that I don't want to take too much of configuration information from the user, right? So earlier they were only talking about applications. Now they need to talk about positioning, they need to talk about cloud configuration and all the other stuff, right? So the complexity is something Nephio is trying to take away. And the thought process is you just declare the intent, what you want to have, how you want to have, and leave the underneath mechanisms with the platform. So if I am let's say, for example, a 5G core provider, right? I know what would work well with what kind of requirements, right? However, for advanced users, we can always have a provision that we open up that you can customize everything as per your requirement. But many of them will be just the basic users, which will say that, okay, I want this, right? So for example, there was an example discussed in the community event also that talk about a car, right? You can say that, okay, I want to completely customize a car. You can do that. Nobody is stopping you to do that, right? But it will take a hell lot of time. It will give you satisfaction, but probably it will not deliver to the promise that is required out of the car, right? You are still going to drive it in the same way if you would have taken just a car out of the showroom directly. So that is the context with which Nephio is trying to go in this direction. So that is the thought process of simplification.
If I ask you, when we look at Coredge, how do you see the evolution of 5G, how it will enable a lot of use cases, business use cases that we have not seen so far, or how it will make things easier for businesses?
As part of the 3GPP standards, right? So while moving from 4G to 5G, a lot of expectations and new architecture is already brought into position on how they really visualize a telco network and how they want to solve it, right? From a business consumption perspective, the idea is that it will give you a platform to expand connectivity to billions of devices that would enable large scale IoT, some sort of autonomous vehicle driving aspects as well as looking forward to be there, right? And then many health care solutions around it, AR, VR aspects of it are supposed to be handled. So when you're trying to do all of these things, the basic requirements comes around is how you are going to abstract the network for these communications, provide them some sort of service assurance so that their SLAs are met and their solutions are appropriately provided out of it, right? So for that, the dynamicity required in the 5G core and the overall RAN networks is significantly, I mean, there are significantly high expectations. So this is where the Nephio solution comes in and tries to simplify some of those aspects. And once this whole mechanism is provided, so a business, as part of a business requirement, let's say, I want to roll out a new support for a new device in a particular region, right? So maybe a wristwatch, which would carry a new extra communication chip inside it, which would forward some of the data to me so that I give you an app on which I can monitor your health status and some of the other aspects, right? So those things will become just a click of a button to roll out a new network for someone else, which is called, the concept is called as network slicing. So which is the future expectation. I'm sure that there is a long way to really reach there, but that is the end goal expectation and the benefit which we are looking from 5G.
Can you also share some use cases that you have seen of Nephio? Is it being already in the use, or is it at a very early phase of evaluation?
So as per Google, they are already using pieces of the software in their actual business. But when we look at the 5G problem statement, right? So they are already looking forward to solve it for some of their own customers anyway. And what they have done by virtue of that is they are, so as per Google, they are more open source promoter anyway, right? So they have significantly contributed to Kubernetes itself. And on the same lines, they are looking forward to take the same things back to community so that it can be reused. So in this particular at this particular moment, it is a seed project where a lot of work is done by Google. From a community perspective, people are still trying to understand how these things can be repurposed, reused, integrated with, collaborated with, and redeployed in other scenarios, right? So in Google, it is being used in pretty advanced stage, but for the community, it's very early to put that into perspective.
Right. And if you just look at Coredge's perspective, you are one of the members of this project. How do you look at it project from your own market, the kind of the user base that you are serving?
So the way we are looking at Nephio is in alignment with our product, which is Cloud Compass. So as part of the Cloud Compass platform, we are looking forward to solve the edge problem and accelerate cloud native technologies adoption in the edge computing. And by virtue of that, we are also going with the intent-driven model, and we already see a lot of alignment. So we are in a stage where we see that we can collaborate, leverage, as well as contribute back to the community and make our development fast track. So that's how we are looking at it. And moreover, with the kind of support, adoption perspectives that it is bringing up, the kind of participation we have seen in the summits and community events for Nephio has been phenomenal. So that opens up more opportunities for us to establish collaborations with some of the 5G core providers or maybe RAN providers to collaborate in this space, right? Because we are already compliant there. So if anybody is Nephio compliant, they can probably just run with us as is. So that is how we look at the project.
Excellent. In the beginning, you were also talking about what sets Nephio apart from other projects, but one area was simplicity. But if you can just go a bit deeper into from projects point of view or the community, of course, it's a Linux Foundation project, so they have very good structure for all their projects. The community, the governance is there. But if you can just talk about how it's a bit different from a similar project that might be trying to solve the same problem.
So one of the direct comparisons that were done even in the open source forums was with a project called MCO, which was a multi-cluster orchestrator, again as a project available with Linux, seeded by Intel. And the outlook was the way it is trying to solve the problems is not native to the Kubernetes. And that's where there are some challenges which were still unaddressed. So I'm not trying to say that MCO probably may not be able to solve those challenges, but the traction, the overall adoption perspectives looks much more aligned with the Nephio outlook. People are already developing their Kubernetes controllers to solve some of the operational challenges with their applications anyway that they are looking forward to onboard on Kubernetes platform. And that goes very well with the Nephio project rather than the MCO project. So the trend is in favor of Nephio in that direction. And then overall, there is an umbrella project in LF that is ONAP project, again driven by many of the telcos in the community. And that can potentially collaborate with Nephio, leveraging some of the capabilities that Nephio will bring into the perspective, right? And that can be a northbound piece to the Nephio, providing end-to-end orchestration and slicing mechanism for 5G.
And now, if I ask you, what are your thoughts on, what will be the next step for intent-based active reconciliation? Where is AI ML there, especially for telecom and infrastructure provider? Automation is the key. AI ML is the key, but where is it now?
So from open source projects, a lot of things are being done, and I'm sure at Google, maybe a lot of customers might be using it, but we have, at least we are yet to see that in production at the moment. So people talk about closed loop automations and some sort of AI ML perspectives into solving some of the things, automatically resolving it faster. But it's little bit, at the moment, I would say incomplete. And maybe there is the road that is paved with the help of an intent-based mechanisms that Kubernetes is bringing into the perspective. And as a extension, these will be possible to be enabled soon. So with the adoption of Nephio, probably those things will also get fast-tracked, because at the moment, you are going to be limited with the way you are operating with the stuff, right? Because AI ML is going to be heavily dependent on how you are going to fetch the infrastructure data or the application data and then act on top of it. So the model that this Kubernetes API extension brings in is that enables you to go in that direction a little bit more faster. So maybe we will see better adoptions with this one.
Well, Zayan, thanks for explaining that. Now, I also want to talk about, when we talk about we live in a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud world, there are a lot of players, a lot of vendors out there. How prepared is Nephio to kind of address, multi-vendor or multi-telco cloud challenges, because there is not a single cloud, multi-cloud. or what kind of intervention from system integrators is still needed, or how independent is it from them?
So we are also kind of looking forward to how it will shape up in that direction as a company. And talking from project perspective, everything is a kind of delivered with the help of API extension, right? So this is extensible to include any new vendor at any point of time. But from our perspective, we are still looking at some sort of standardizations as much as possible, because that kind of solves a lot of problems in one go for you, right? If they are done rightly. But again, the intent is to give the full-fledged capability. So this is a little bit of a gray area, the way at least I am looking at it, and I am also keenly observing how the community kind of moves in this direction.
Prabhjot, thank you so much for taking time out today and not only talk about this project, but also talk about how the ecosystem is growing around this project, how the market is growing, and how you folks are, as a community, solving a much bigger problem for telcos by simplifying things in this space. So thanks for sharing those insights. And as usual, I would love to have you back on the show. Thank you.